Hi, this is Adam Sandman from Inflectra, and in today's webinar, I'm going to be giving you an introduction into SpiraTeam, the application lifecycle management and test management solution from Inflectra. During today's webinar, we will first of all have a little overview of ALM and application lifecycle management, describing what its functionality is and what features you should look for. We'll then look into the live application itself to see a demonstration of the SpiraTeam features. We'll first go through the dashboards, where we'll show you an end user's dashboard, dashboards for project managers, test managers, and program managers. We'll then dive into the requirements management module, showing you how you can manage requirements for both a traditional waterfall project and using the planning boards for an agile project. We'll then work on developing our test plan using the test management functionality. We'll build some test suites. We will show you how you can schedule them, and then we will run a couple of sample test suites and log some defects. That will then take us into the defect tracking system, where we can triage some defects, assign them to developers, and use the task and resource management system to make sure we load balance the people on the team correctly and make sure we're not over assigning people too many tasks, defects, or requirements. And then we'll wrap things up with an overview of the reporting functionality for both the standard and custom reports and graphs, which augment the dashboards that we first started with. So SpiraTeam is our integrated application lifecycle management solution, and what that means is that SpiraTeam can manage your project in its entirety from beginning, the inception, right through to the end. It includes our SpiraTest test management solution as a core part of the functionality, and that gives you requirements management, test management, and bug tracking. But it also adds onto it a full Agile project management toolkit as part of that. And we also have a source code management solution called TaraVault, which is bundled with SpiraTeam, and that's based on the popular Git and Subversion source code management tools. So if you're managing a software or system project, SpiraTeam can manage everything from the initial setup of the project, writing the requirements, building the test plan, assigning tasks to developers, assigning test cases to the testers, running the project, validating the schedule, resource management, fixing the bugs, releasing the software, and managing all the source code that goes with it. So how does it do all of that? So to see that in action, we're going to jump from PowerPoint into the live application, which is right here. And SpiraTeam is a cross-browser application. So today I'm going to be demonstrating it to you in Chrome. You can use it in Firefox, Safari, Opera, IE, or Edge. It's also fully mobile responsive and can be used on a mobile device from a tablet, cell phone, up to a full-size screen. And SpiraTeam is also available both cloud-hosted and also on-premise. So you have a choice of deployments. So I'm going to log in right now with administrator, and the password is please change, which we hope you will do. And this is the same set of sample data you'll see if you sign up for a trial version of SpiraTeam. So if you like what you see today, feel free to sign up for a trial version. The login will also be administrator please change, and you can play along at home with what we're doing today. So when you first log into SpiraTeam, you come to this My Page view, and the My Page view in SpiraTeam is designed to let each of your users coming in have a place where they can see everything they have to work on. So they haven't got to go hunting for their test cases or their defects or their requirements or their tasks. They can see them right here in SpiraTeam. In addition, they will get emails when things are assigned to them, so they don't have to necessarily go to this page. They can do it through email. And also, we do integrate with a variety of other tools. So if they're using Visual Studio or Eclipse or IntelliJ or other development tools, they can see their assigned requirements and defects and tasks instead of the IDEs as well. But in general, when you come into the My Page, you'll see things like the list of projects you're a member of. You'll see any searches and favorites you've set up, and that's particular to each user. And then depending on what work you've been assigned, these different sections may be populated or not. In this example, our user has got a couple of different items across the system. I've been assigned 3 requirements that you can see here, and they cover 2 different projects. I've been assigned some test cases to run, some test sets to run. I've also found some defects during my testing, which you can see right here. I've also been assigned some defects to fix. And then lastly, I may also be assigned some development tasks, which I haven't in this case, and those would appear right here. If there are any tests that I'm in the middle of, they will also be shown here under my pending test runs, so that way you can resume something you're in the middle of. And this page is customizable, so a user can go in here, they can modify the layout, change the settings, and they can add additional items to it at the dashboard as well. And then lastly, they can also filter it if they want to see just one project. Right now I'm seeing everything across all my projects to give me a consolidated view, but that might not always be desired. Then this is the view that an individual end user would come in. Now, if you're a project manager coming in, you typically want to look at across all your users on one project, not just what you're working on. And so that's gone by when you log in, you'll go to the project homepage. The project homepage is another one of our dashboards, and it's designed to let project managers, QA managers, test managers, be able to have a place where they can see their entire project. And it comes in 3 different views: general, development, and testing. The general view is the one that really gives you the breadth of all the different disciplines that we cover. So when you come in, you'll see your project's open issues and risks, you'll see your test status, you can see the requirements summary: how many requirements do I have, what priority are they in, do we have a whole bunch of really low priority ones that have already been done and a bunch of critical ones that are still being waited on review, which would be suboptimal, or the reverse, which is hopefully the case. Do you have lots of requirements that can be tested? If all your requirements are listed in this blue column, it means you've got no test cases. You can't test them. They can't be validated. And so in a typical project, you would have a mixture of these different statuses. Ideally, you want everything to be in the pass column and nothing to be in the not run, failed, or not covered columns. In addition to that, we also will track the tasks that make up each of the releases and each of the milestones in the project. You'll see that right here under task progress. And whenever you see these colored indicators, we do of course provide a tooltip so you can see the data behind the illustration. Here you can see the green means the tasks are on schedule, the red means the tasks are running late, yellow means they're starting late, and gray means they're not started yet. There's a little bit of gray there. And of course, we also have defect metrics, and we call those incidents in SpiraTeam. And you'll see various graphs that you here that can let you see the number of defects that are open and the distribution by priority. We also support burn down graphs, and then we also have some additional tables that show you things like late finishing tasks, late starting tasks, and also what is the heritage of those defects. Are all the defects tied to one feature that's really, really buggy, or are they evenly spread? And you can see that here. If you get 1 or 2 requirements with a disproportionate number of defects, you might want to investigate before you start fixing all the bugs. This is the general view. Of course, you can narrow it down to a different version. So if I want to look at just release 1, or just release 1.1, or a specific sprint or iteration, you can do that right here, or blow it up to the whole project. That's up to you. And in addition to that, we do have 2 other predefined views. The development view focuses on the development aspects of the lifecycle. So you'll see the builds, which tie into Jenkins and TeamCity or other build servers that you might be using. The source code commits are visible, so you can see how much code is being committed, and you have a whole bunch of commits right before release, which is not a good practice. Or do you have a more even distribution, and are you committing less as time is going on, ready for release, for example? Also, the development one will show you some of the same metrics you saw before. And then we do have a testing view. And the testing view will focus on more of the test metrics. So you'll see your test results over time in this line graph, the cumulative progress against the milestones, and more of the test graphs are visible. Now, all of the graphs and charts you see can be added to any of the dashboards. They're just what is the starting point. We've built these 3 starting points to save time. You don't have to go in and add items to the different dashboards, but you can certainly do that to customize each of the 3. And so that lets you see your project's information for the release, the sprint, or the whole project, and by different discipline. And of course, you might want to go up one level and say, well, I'm responsible for 3 or 4 different projects. It would be great to be able to see those together and report on those. Well, don't worry. If you go to the program view by clicking on the white item that we call a program or project group, you can see a dashboard for the entire project group like that. So now you can see multiple projects together with graphs that cover all of them, giving you a portfolio view, as well as the builds across all the different projects. So that's an overview of the dashboards inside of SpiraTeam. And we show this first because in the end, managing a project is great, but unless the information you get out of the tool is useful, people won't want to spend time entering information, updating information. So SpiraTeam makes your life much easier because instead of managing 3 or 4 different tools, it's all consolidated in one place, and these dashboards reflect that. So now we've done some of the reporting, we're going to go then into the beginning of the system and how do we start using it. So the SpiraTeam is broken into 3 main areas: planning, testing, and tracking. And you don't have to use them in that order, they're just there as a guide. So when you first start a project, you're typically going to be using the requirements management module to begin to enter in some of your features. And SpiraPlan works in 2 different modes. You can, for example, use this traditional hierarchical view, where all of your requirements are in a tree structure, and you can have functional requirements, system requirements, use cases. You can have the qualities, like scalability, maintainability, things like that. You can have as many levels as you like. You can see for each of the requirements the test coverage, how many tests we have, and also the task progress. How many tasks do we have? Are they on schedule? Are they behind? And the end result will be something like this one here, where all the tests are passed and all the tasks are done. So this requirement here, number 5, is in good shape. The others still have a bit of work to go. And the graphs on the side do give you a nice summary view where you can see what percentage of your requirements are testable and have been tested, and a burn down graph that shows you how much you're completing in each of your releases as well. These graphs are the same ones on the home page, but we include them here on the left hand side just so you can see them live in the system. In addition to this view, which is our traditional view, we also have an Agile View, which if you go to Planning Board, that will show you all the requirements, and it will show it to you as story cards. And you can see here, we'll see all of our store requirements that we saw in the view before as story cards. And you can configure the view. Right now we're showing requirements only, we're not showing defects. We can also include defects into the view, because when you're planning different sprints and releases, sometimes those defects will be performed by the same team, so you need to include them in the calculations for what's being done in that sprint or release, or you can ignore them if not. You're right now able to see the requirements and the test cases, and the test cases are shown as mini story cards in the main card. If you want to see tasks, you can turn that on as well, and that will add another row of story cards corresponding to the tasks. And these 2 rows of tasks and test cases correspond to the columns you'd see here on the hierarchical view. So you can always have a list view or a board view. And of course, if you want to see more information again, you can choose Detail View, and that will add the full description and a progress bar to each of the requirements. It's depending on your screen size and what information you want, it will remember these settings when you change them. The planning board itself can be viewed right now for the whole project, and you can view it by release, see what's in each release, for example. These are all my different releases. I can even drill down and look at just one release, and I can see that one release by priority, or I can see it by sprint or duration. I can see it by status, which is my Kanban view, or I can see it by person. And these are drag and droppable, so you can move the story cards between the different people, between the different priorities, or between the different iterations and sprints. And if you do that, it will update this page as well. On this page, you can do the same thing. You can edit the values. You can also create test cases from them. So if you haven't got test cases, you can go in here and just create test cases, create a test set, export to other projects, and print. So there's lots of functionality for editing, viewing, and reporting right here on this list page. We'll drill down one level further to go into a specific requirement. And when you click on a requirement in SpiraTeam, we go to what's called the detail page. Every artifact in SpiraTeam has a detail page. Test cases, requirements, defects, tasks, they all have these pages, and they let you see the entire artifact. And you can open up multiple artifacts in different tabs. So I could open up requirement 7 and requirement 4 like this in different tabs. And for each requirement, you'll see the name, you'll see the long description if there is one. Let's see if I've got one that has more information. This one I think has more information over here. Yeah, so here you can see we have a bulleted list. You've got the full range of formatting, and screen capture can be put in here. All the various fields that go with that requirement are visible, including the estimate, and you can also have users follow you on this. So if I want to have someone CC when a requirement changes, I can add them as a follower, or I can subscribe myself. And there's also a built-in instant messenger, so if I want to send a real-time message, I can do that as well. I can go in here and say, Fred, and if you like certain things in the conversation that you want to capture for future use, you can post them as comments. And when you do that, they then get attached to the requirement as a permanent comment. SpiraTeam also comes with a workflow engine, and this is true for the requirements module, the test module, the defect module, and the task module. You've got customizable workflows, so you can change how SpiraTeam will let you move requirements through the system, from a new idea that's first thought of to a fully developed, fully tested feature that's ready to ship. For each requirement, you will also be able to understand the test coverage. That's going to show you how many tests there are. They can be functional tests, they can be automated unit tests, automated UI tests, API tests, load tests, security tests, all the different things you need to test for this one feature. They're all managed in the system, and when all of them pass, then the whole requirement is considered tested. Similarly, on the development side, we have the task section, and that's where you can see all of the tasks that go with the requirement, and they can be in different types. They could be development tasks, they could be oversight tasks, infrastructure tasks, everything you need to get done for this requirement to be ready, to be tested and developed and reviewed. That's all tracked here. And you can assign the different tasks to different people. For example, these first 3 tasks have been assigned to Fred. This last one has been assigned to Joe. So that way you can take one feature, one requirement, one user story, and break it into smaller work elements. When all those work elements are done, the overall status of the requirement will then change. You can also attach documents to a requirement, screenshots, links, and all those documents inside of SpiraTeam are versioned. So if I look at one and go View Item, that takes me into the document itself, and you can see here, this is my document. There's my version history of it. I can have different versions of it. And if I go to the Associations tab, this one document is actually linked to 2 different requirements and a test case. So that way, if I change my document, upload a new version, then all of these items will pick up the new version. I don't have to go in and actually manually upload it to every single requirement, which is a nice time saver. And that central document repository can also be accessed on the main menu going Planning Documents. It's right here. So we do a full document management system out of the box with SpiraTeam. When requirements do change, of course, you need to make sure you know about them. You need to make sure that you have an audit trail, and that's available right here in the History tab. So if you look at the History tab, you're going to see the change history of the requirement. Every time you make a change, we store it in the change record right here, and then it's available to report on and generate documents from as well. And then the last thing is traceability. Traceability is a key part of SpiraTeam's functionality. We've already seen how you can see test cases and tasks linked to the requirement, but it's also more than that. You can link this requirement to other requirements elsewhere in the tree structure by using the Add button. You can even link them across different projects if you want. So if you have a set of core requirements that in one project need to link to another project, you can do cross-project linking. You can also link to a defect, and that's common when you have a defect that was logged by a developer directly. It wasn't done during a formal testing activity, and you want to have it relate to the requirement because you want to make sure that requirement is tagged with it. You can do that right there with the link incident. We also do support source code revisions, so if you are using a source code management tool like TaraVault, or if you're doing an on-premise solution like Git or Subversion or Microsoft Teams system, all those source code versions and commits can be tagged with specific items, and will then update this requirement with those items as well. So that's an overview of the requirements management section. The next thing we'll talk about is how you would plan the release, and then we'll talk about the testing. So we've written some requirements, we've got a planning board where we can move things around, but how do we set that up in the first place? Well, the releases and all the milestones are set up in the planning releases section, and that's where you can see all of the releases and all the milestones in your project. This project's basically got 4 or 5 major releases that are in blue. It's got some minor releases under those, and then it's got in yellow the iterations or sprints. If this is an Agile project, they will be sprints. So you might have sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, and you'd have requirements, and you'd have user stories, and you'd have test cases tied to each of these. If it was a waterfall project, you would use the option to create a phase, and you can have design, develop, test, UAT phases laid out in the schedule as well. So SpiraTeam will work with you whether you have Scrum, Kanban, another form of Agile, waterfall, or some other hybrid methodology that you're using. It'll work with you on that. And the results from testing and tasks will roll up the hierarchy from an iteration or phase up to a release, up to its parent release. And so that way the results will permeate up the tree structure, giving you a holistic view. So once you set up the releases, you set up the requirements, you've planned them, you typically then will want to create a test plan. And to do that, you'll go into the testing side to test cases. The test cases in SpiraTeam live under the testing section, test cases, and you can have folders and subfolders. So for example, if I wanted to create a new folder, we have some functional tests right here, and maybe there's a lot of them. I want to be able to separate some out. Maybe I want to create a folder for the sample ones and keep those separate from the live ones. You can create folders very easily, and then you can just drag and drop them by selecting the boxes and just drag them over like that, and then you've now got a subfolder. So it's very easy to organize your test cases in SpiraTest. All the test cases do ultimately come with various fields like the status of the test case, the last time it was run, who it was assigned to, when it was last run, the priority, who wrote it, and various other fields. And in the same way that we saw on the requirements page, you've got inline editing right here, so you can change things. You've also got the ability to change the display, so you can show and hide different columns if you want. And the other thing you might want to do is change the version. So right now I'm showing the test plan and test results for the most recent release of the system. I might want to look at just release 1. What do we plan for release 1? What do we do in release 1? And when you choose that option, you'll see that the number of test cases dropped and the results changed. Because this will only include the results from release 1. If I change release, we'll see different results, and depending on which test cases are in the plan, you may see different test cases. Now, what actually is a test case? So a test case is ultimately a description of a test activity, a scenario, as you will, and then some steps to actually implement the test. So this would be our test case. It's the ability to create a new book. This ties back to the requirement, creating a new book in the system, and it ties to the use case we have, creating a new book. So we have a use case and a requirement both tagged with this test case, which is great. So this test result will flow up and impact the test coverage for both those two items in the requirements module. And you'll also have a description field, and as you can see here, using the rich text editor, we've created a description of the test, and we've provided some preconditions. And this is fully freeform. You can put in any information you want in here to describe your test. You can have various fields that describe your test case. One thing I'm going to call out as being interesting is the suspect flag. This is a new feature we added, and it's very important because what this means is if you have a test case that was approved and a requirement that's approved, and then someone goes in and changes the requirement in some way, now that does impact the test case. We don't know right now whether that requirement, the change we made to it, would require the test case to be changed, or maybe it's still okay. And so we'll flag automatically the test case as suspect. And then you can go in here, review the test case, and then mark it back as not suspect and hit save. And that will then appear in the history. So that's a good way of making sure that you haven't missed any unanticipated changes to the requirement that need to impact the test case. Now the test case, as well as the name and description, does include a full test script, and if you're doing manual testing, you'll want to document these steps. These are the steps your testers would carry out. You also have the option to do test links. That's where you link in other test cases using this insert link feature right here. You can use another test case, choose the name of it, fill in the parameters that it expects, hit add, and that adds a link just like this one. And that's a way to have reusable test steps across multiple test cases. Manual testing is very good, but also you'll typically want to do automated testing, ideally, and so we do have an automation section, and that's where the automated test script will live. And in this example, we're using an automation script based on the Rapise automated testing tool that we provide as an add-on to SpiraTeam. We also integrate with a variety of other automation tools on the market, including Selenium, Quick Test Pro, Test Complete, Ranorex, and so on. So you've got a large choice of load testing tools, functional testing tools, unit testing tools. If you want more information on any of the integrations I have talked about, feel free to go to our website, go to products, actually go to support, go to product integrations, and go to SpiraTeam. That's the fastest way. You can also go to the product page too. And these will give you a flavor of some of the different things we integrate with. Jumping back into the application, once your test case is written, you will often want to review the test coverage, which is right here. You can see all of the executions, and so this test case was run before. If I want to see what happened, I can click on the link, and that brings up my test run. And then I can now see exactly what happened, step by step, like that. There's the step, expected result, sample data, and then the actual result with the option for a screenshot. And if a defect is logged, it's right here. You can also see all of the defects from all of the runs right here in summary. So that saves having to click around to find them. You can also see any attachments that are part of this test case, the test sets it belongs to, we'll come back to that, and there's an audit trail as well. Now, when you run test cases, we would typically recommend you put them into a test set, which is these things. And this one test case is currently in 4 sets. Now, you don't have to do that. You can simply go in here and say, I'm going to assign this test case to Fred and hit save. It will email Fred and Fred will run it. That's great. Now, imagine if you have 10,000 test cases and you have 20, 30, 40, 50 testers, that's a lot of assignment to do. So once you're on a larger project, we would recommend you go into the test set module right here and create a new test set. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. So we'll create a new test set. We'll call it Demo Suite 1. Bear in mind, these also can be organized into folders and subfolders in the same way. And you've got some nice graphs here to show you the ratio of your test sets and how many tests have passed and failed across the board. And you can see how many of your test sets are overdue versus on time. So let's go look at our new suite. Well, our new suite is completely empty. This is it here, Demo Suite 1. It's not assigned to anyone. This information is all blank, and there are no test cases in it yet. So let's go ahead and add some test cases. So let me go in here and choose a folder. Let me add some functional tests. So we'll add these two in, hit add, and then we'll add in maybe a regression test as well. Great. So we've now got 3 test cases in our set, and the order actually is not correct because you can't create a book tree of an author. So we'll drag this up and change the order slightly. So you can reprioritize and reorder the test cases in the set so that they make sense. Now what I'll do is assign it to myself. In real life, you'd assign it to someone else most likely. Oops, that's not me. There you go. And I'm going to run it in release 1. And I also want to have it tell me when to do it today. I want to do it by 3:31. That's fine. Hit save. It's now scheduled. Now I'll get an email, and if I go to the My page or click on the email, it will take me to the page where I can run the test, which is right here. If I hit the play button, it's now going to start the testing activity. So that's great. So we'll hit next on this window. The release is chosen for me. I will choose the browser, and I will choose the operating system. These are customizable. These are just some samples we put in the demo, so don't worry if you're not doing testing on web applications. That's not hard-coded. And here's the test results. I'm going to go through my test cases step by step and log my results. Now, you may notice that we have the test cases on the left and we have the results on the right. And that's great. You can click through them like this and just navigate and log results. So if I go to my first step, pretend I'm going to go to this URL. So let's actually go ahead and do it. Bring it over here. It's our test application. You can actually pretend you're playing along with it. The login and password does work. It's a full application. You can also use that with our automated testing tool as well as a sample application. We'll just pretend though to save some time. So I'll do pass. We'll log in, enter, and we're going to associate something, and then we're going to hit a button. So we're going to pretend the button fails. Now before I do that, this is the view we have called the split view. Some people also like the table view. Table view is very similar, but instead of it being a left and right side, it's one big table and the buttons are right here. So you can go ahead and log results and pass and fail things in the more scrollable view. Some people have their preference, but the functionality is identical and you can do everything in either view. And the mini view is also an option. That's when you're running on a cell phone and make it smaller like that. That's what you'll see. So let's go back to the split view and let's log a failure. So step 6 is to click the button. We're going to pretend that fails. So we'll say fail to submit author. Got an error message. We'll put in a screenshot. I'll just take a screenshot of that. It's not actually an error, but pretend it is. Paste it in. So when you paste it into the text box, we automatically upload it and handle it. Nothing else needs to be done, so it's very easy. And the last thing you want to do is log a defect. Now before you log a defect, it's going to tell you, do you already have a defect? So if there is already a defect against this step, I can look on it and decide, is it the same one? And it's actually something different to what I experienced, so it's actually not something I'm going to link. If it was the same defect, you could link it and then just hit fail. But because it's actually something different, I'm going to go here and actually log a new bug. So bug on author creation, database error. And that's a bug, not an enhancement. And you can change those types. I'll fill in the required fields at the very least. And then I hit fail. And that has failed my step and failed my test case. And moving on to the next one. So I can't actually create a new book because I can't create an author. So if you can't create an author, that's a prerequisite. So I'm actually going to log in here and say blocked. Blocked means it didn't fail, but I can't get to it because of a failure in a prerequisite or a test case that's needed beforehand. And that's the yellow status. And that will block the whole test case. Lastly, it wants me to test something else. I'm just going to pass all for that one. So we've passed one, failed one, and blocked one. And you can see here the colored indicators show that clearly. This is also clickable, so you can navigate using this top nav as well. Once you're happy with the results, you hit finish. There's your test results. They're posted in the system live, and you're good to go as tester. Now, as the project manager, you go into the incident view, The instant view, I'll come back to this in a second. We do have a table view and we have a board view. So the table view is your traditional defect list. And if I just go in here and reorder it by either date or ID, you'll see our new one at the top. And I can go in here as the project manager and assign this and triage it. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to assign this to, let's see, we'll assign that to Donna to fix. And we will view the description. That's what happened. That's what was meant to happen. There's the screenshot, and there's my step list, so I can see what happened. If I want more information than that text box gives me, well, one thing is I can always blow it up full screen. That's quite nice. But I can also go in here and go to the Associations tab, and I can control click and say, what was the test run? This is the test result, and that gives me a more detailed breakdown. It shows me the login and password, all the parameters I used, the screenshot, the step-by-step breakdown. So that way it makes it easier for a developer to reproduce what the tester did, and vice versa. Okay, so I'm going to assign that to Donna. If I hit save, it's going to warn me that there are some fields required. So in the workflow system, you can decide which fields you want to make required, which fields you want optional. That's up to you. And the system will make sure they are filled out. I hit save. It's now assigned to Donna. Donna will get an email, and then she would then fix it. I would come in here. I would, first of all, verify that it's fixed, and then close it. And to make that even easier, right here on the run, there is a retest option that lets me rerun the existing failed test and log it as a pass. Now, as defects build up in the system, you can always manage them using the list page like this. So you can view all the defects, you can find all the open bugs, we've got some favorites we can save. So if you've got a favorite filter, like I want a priority 1, I could save that as a different filter, like P1 bugs. And I can share that with the whole team, or just myself. When I do that, you'll see now I have a P1 open bugs list. So that way you can create favorites to share with your team. In addition to the list view, which is typical with the graphs which show you the open and close count and the priority count, there's also a Kanban board option where you can see all the defects that are open and you can see them in a Kanban board, drag and drop them, and it's very useful when you're managing a larger project. So that's an overview of the defect tracking functionality. So we've written our requirements, we've written our tests, we've run some tests, they failed, we've logged some bugs, we've fixed some bugs, and we can track the bugs, which is great. Now, also we have development activity going on, and I talked about that before. We created some tasks that were part of the, if you remember, part of the requirements. I also have a task view, so I can go in here and see all of my tasks. I'll clear my filters right now, and you can see it by folder. We allow folders and subfolders, so I can see all my development tasks, front-end development, back-end development, database, infrastructure, everything we might have in the system, oversight tasks, whatever else is in the system that we have, and you can filter it to say, find me any of the not started tasks, there are none, find me any that are starting late, there are plenty, or running late, a small number, and completed. So that's very good. And you can also do that by folder, by status, by type, priority, and you can sort and search by any of the standard fields or custom fields. There's also some graphs down here, a open and close count, priority on track, and so on, and then a burn down graph as well. The other option is to view it in a Kanban board. So in the same way that we saw it for the defects, we do have a Kanban board and a Scrum board. So in Scrum, you can see all of your tasks by sprint. So these are my 3 sprints. These are all my tasks and who they're assigned to with a little avatar. If you want a more Kanban view, you go in here and do it by status. Everything here is done, so it's obviously all in one step. And then you also do have the option of doing it by person. If you want to see, who's overworked, who should I assign new things to. So there's several different views of the tasks as well as the defects, both list and Kanban. And there's also a resource view where you can see all the people on the project or in the program. You can see everything they're working on, click on it, and it'll drill you down to get more information. So this is Fred. He's working on all these requirements and tasks. He's fixing these defects. He is running these test cases, or about to. He's been assigned these test sets, and he's also been recently doing these things. So if you want to see what he's most recently done, there's an audit trail by person as well. And if you click on it, you can even find out what that person actually did. So that's an overview of the resource section. In addition to that, we do also, as I mentioned, have the source code functionality. And this is if you're using SpiraTeam for a software project or anything that involves software code. We do have a built-in Subversion and Git module called Tara Vault, and that lets you manage your source code. in our secure environment. If you're using an on-premise installation or another installation of Git and Subversion or TFS or Perforce, we also integrate with those tools as well. But that way you can view all of the source code in the system. You can look at the functionality and actually view the code inline. So here's the code that we actually have. You can look at all the revisions of that code, and you can see why it was changed. And it may be tagged with a specific requirement or a specific defect or task, and you can then see what was impacted by that change. So that becomes part of the system as well. And then the last thing we have is the reporting. So the reporting allows you to visualize information beyond the dashboards. So you have all the dashboards that I first showed you. There's also reporting, and we have both standard and custom reports. So first of all, if we look at some of the standard reports, you can see them down here. We've got the defect graphs over time, pure progress count, cumulative count, open count. You can filter by the types, the date ranges. You can also export that out into a table or into an Excel sheet. That's going to fire up Excel right here, which is nice. There's my Excel sheet. And as well as the various time-based graphs. These are the defect one, these are the testing ones. You can also export these out. We also have snapshot graphs that show you the current state, and you can change the different fields. So I'm showing you requirement status against priority, do it the other way around. I'm doing status by priority here for test cases. Could flip that the other way around, or by person or author, or for example. And any of these can be exported as well and into CSV, and various other graphs that we have. So we have those various graphs. Now, in addition to that, we do allow you to write custom graphs, and you can write custom graphs using SQL and publish them in a donut/pie chart form, a bar chart, or a line chart. And a chart you have is also exportable in the exact same way as a standard graph. And you can publish these for your team to use, and they can choose between all the different custom graphs. Going through that is outside the scope of this particular webinar. We do have some recordings we've done before of how to create custom graphs. If you're interested in that functionality and you're listening to this right now, please feel free to browse our YouTube channel. We have a webinar on custom graphing and one on custom reporting. So these are the graphs. We do also support reports. Reports are documents that you generate, and you can run different types of reports, and you can create custom reports in your own format as well. For today, we're only going to be looking at the standard reports, and to do that, you can simply choose the format you want to run and the type of report, which could be one that's standard with the system like this one, or it could be a custom one that you've made that someone else has published or you've published. And you choose the format, you choose which elements to include in the report, you choose how to filter it. You can filter by any of the standard fields, any of the custom fields, and then when you're ready to run it, you hit the button. If you don't want to run it now, but you want to save it for the future, you can just give it a name, like that. If you want to share it, choose the button. Now it's available for everyone to run. If you want to run it right now, then you don't need this, and you can just go ahead and click create. And then while we're waiting for it to run, I'll just mention that we do support reporting in PDF, Word, Excel, HTML, and XML formats. And it's a great way to get information out of the system. It can generate documents which would be used to give to clients or customers, for example. And you can use custom SQL to create custom sections where you want to have maybe an embedded table with some key metrics that your team always needs or your company always needs. That's entirely possible in SpiraTeam. You just write the SQL and publish it as a table in your report. It's ready, so let's go ahead and hit the button. There's our RTM, Requirements Traceability Matrix, and you're good to go. And when you finish with the report, you can just close it. And if you want to modify the report definition, click back, make changes, change the format, change any of the filters or fields or the sorts, and then generate it again. Thanks for watching today's webinar on SpiraTeam. If you'd like to learn more about software testing or application lifecycle management, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Have a good day.